Are you aiming for an MCAT score of 515, 520, or even higher? If you are serious about medical school, today I am going to give you the exact step-by-step strategy that our top performing students use to consistently achieve those elite MCAT scores without just endlessly reading the textbooks. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to structure your next 4 months of studying to make sure that you can actually get your highest possible score. So let's dive in. First off, why do most students get stuck? What we see, most pre-med students kind of tend to make the same mistake. They spend hours and hours passively reading textbooks, highlighting pages, hoping that they're going to actually retain the information. But in reality, reading is not effective learning. The MCAT is not a test of how well you memorize textbooks, paragraphs, or even just the material itself. It is about your ability to quickly and accurately actually apply those key concepts in novel scientific type scenarios. So why doesn't actually reading that in a book work? Well, first off, passive reading, it doesn't actually engage your brain deeply enough. You may feel like you're being productive because you've covered a lot of material, you've made it through a lot of pages, you've highlighted a whole bunch of stuff, essentially. But when it comes to actually recalling, or more importantly, applying that information under the pressure of an exam as important as the MCAT, a lot of times you're going to draw a blank. Highlighting and rereading, it also kind of creates a false sense of familiarity. You think that you understand it because you've seen it a lot, but really that's not super true. It just makes you think you understand something more than you actually really do. Also, a lot of times the textbooks are overly detailed. They go a lot more in depth in the material than what you actually need on the MCAT. So it leads to essentially overstudying for the exam. It's going to overwhelm you and it's going to really dilute your effectiveness in studying. It also has a tendency to lead to overthinking on the exam and making even the most basic, simple concepts a lot more complicated than they have to be. The MCAT, it really tests specific competencies that are already outlined by the AAMC. Every single obscure detail that is in that textbook is not going to be on the exam. It's more about breadth of understanding the general ideas and the general topics. So instead of passively absorbing the information, what we see students that are really getting those top scores do is actively engage with the content through things like active recall, spaced repetition, frequent testing. This is going to really ensure that the concepts that you're learning are actually deeply embedded in your brain, in your memory, and easily accessible on test day, even when there's the added pressure. In other words, your MCAT prep should really prioritize strategic, active learning techniques. You want to really design those learning techniques specifically around the exam itself. So that's all well and good, right? But how do you actually do that? Let's kind of look at what we would recommend for a detailed 4-month study plan for a student who's trying to prepare for the exam. First off, you want to make sure you've had all the classes. If you haven't had all the classes that go into the MCAT exam, you are starting from an extreme disadvantage. So make sure you've had 2 semesters of Gen Chem, 2 semesters of OChem, your physics, your biology, biochemistry. Biochemistry is very important. That's the most heavily weighted course on the exam. So you really do need your biochemistry, and then a psych or a social class. So in the first couple of months, you're really going to focus on your content review. You're going to start familiarizing yourself with the list of topics that the AAMC gives and exclusively focus on those high yield topics. Don't waste yourself with the obscure details. You want to prioritize foundational knowledge in those courses that I just listed: biology, biochemistry, physics, Gen Chem, OChem, psych, and sociology. You want to make sure you are using active learning resources. So flashcards, video lessons, and question banks. These resources all are going to actually encourage active recall, and that's going to be what reinforces that long-term retention that you really need for the MCAT. You want to make sure that you have a very structured weekly study schedule that outlines your daily tasks very clearly and what your content goals are for each day. You will really want to think about short focused study sessions, not just an 8-hour day where you're just kind of aimlessly going through things. And you want to take brief breaks in the middle to really make sure that you're maintaining that productivity. Every 2 weeks, you want to either take some sort of diagnostic or half-link under timed conditions, so that way you can analyze your performance and make sure that you're improving and that you're analyzing where your weak areas still are. After you're finished with that in the first couple months, the third month, you're really going to move into intensive practice and application. So you want to shift your focus to applying that foundational knowledge that you've really built up over the first couple months in realistic MCAT scenarios. You're going to start using your official AAMC resources. And you really want to, whenever you're doing the practice exams, you really want to make sure that you're simulating real test taking conditions. After every practice exam that you take, you want to make sure that you spend significant time reviewing it and analyzing your performance. So it's not just about looking at what you got right and wrong. It's about actually understanding why every choice is correct and why other choices are incorrect. And if you're getting questions wrong, why you're choosing the incorrect answer. You want to make sure that you're actively identifying what your weakest topics are from these analyses of your full-length exams and specifically review those areas with very targeted specific resources. Think about including other active recall methods like writing explanations in your own words to make sure that you really are understanding things in the way that you need to, at the level that you need to. You want to make sure that you're daily actively practicing with high quality question banks and make sure that the emphasis is on the application and the reasoning, not just remembering facts. Because again, MCAT doesn't really ask you to remember facts. It wants you to apply them. So finally, moving into the fourth month. Last month, you're really going to make sure you're just kind of refining everything to get these last extra points. Focus on intensive test taking practice, pacing, and strategy. So you're going to be taking your full-length exams every week under extremely strict conditions. So I cannot emphasize this enough. Replicate the test taking environment as closely as possible. You really want to give yourself thorough reviews after every exam. So think about where you are spending too much time, where your lingering weaknesses are, where you're missing points the most, and really systematically address them through targeted high yield practice. You want to make sure that you have developed strategies, including how to pace yourself, how to deal with the time constraint. You want to have a few strategies for educated guessing whenever you're not sure what the answer is. You want to make sure that you know how to triage the questions to deal with the time constraint and also manage your stress throughout the exam. At this point, you should not be learning new content. Your goal is review, refinement, and confidence building through lots and lots of practice and lots of strategy. So if you follow this sort of detailed month by month breakdown, you are going to make sure that you're not just learning efficiently, but you're also learning how to apply that knowledge effectively. That's going to dramatically increase your likelihood of actually achieving a top tier MCAT score. So let's look at some habits that we see kind of separate the students that are getting into those top tiers, because it's not just about having the plan, right? There are some things that you need to do to be able to go a little bit deeper than the plan. One of the things that we see are really just specific habits and mindset shifts that consistently are setting those high scoring students apart. The first one, really those top students, those students that are getting those top scores, they prioritize consistency over intensity. You have to be consistent. Study consistently every single day, even if it's just a short session. There are no breaks. There are no, oh, I'm just going to do it tomorrow. It is far more effective to be consistent every single day than it is to have sort of those sporadic marathon study sessions. You need that regular daily practice to make sure that your brain is consistently engaging with that material. It makes it so much more likely that you're going to be able to actually recall it under those stressful exam conditions. Secondly, those top MCAT scorers, they really are making sure that they're practicing deliberate learning. That means not just working through problems passively, not just mindlessly doing things. You're actively analyzing each question and each answer. Ask yourself, why did I miss this question? Why did I choose this instead of the right answer? What concept did I not fully grasp? This intentional approach, it's really going to help you rapidly be able to highlight what your strengths are, and more importantly, where your weaknesses are, where your gaps are. Third, high-performing students, they really emphasize quality over quantity. It does not matter if you study for 8 hours if it's really bad studying. It's the effectiveness of that study time that really is going to count. So instead of studying for 8 hours straight, study in very focused blocks. So think like 50 minutes and then take a break. 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off. This is going to help you really maintain those high levels of concentration. And it's also going to help you not just get completely burned out. Caveat, 50 minutes a day is not enough. So 50 minutes, 10 minutes off, and then get yourself ready to do it again, right? So focused blocks, but you really do consistently need to be studying every day. Mindset, as you're preparing for this exam, is crucial. Successful students treat every single practice test like it's the real exam. It's going to build familiarity. It's going to reduce anxiety. It's going to make sure that on test day, the experience doesn't feel completely novel. It's kind of natural. It's manageable. You feel like you've done it before, because that confidence is key, and test anxiety really can derail you on exam day. So the more that you have actually gone through the experience of doing the exam as closely as you can to what the real world experience is going to be, the more prepared you're going to actually be on exam day. You can use things like visualization techniques, breathing exercises, maintaining a positive internal dialogue, so affirmations to yourself. All of those are really, really helpful tools that you can use on the exam day to help make sure that you keep a positive mindset, your confidence high, and your stress low. Finally, the highest scores that we see, they really regularly reflect on what they're doing, and they're open to adjusting their strategies to make sure that what's working, they do more of, and what's not working, they do less of. Preparation is not just a linear journey. It really is dynamic. Sometimes improvement is not a straight line. It's going to go up and down and up and down. And if something isn't working, you want to make sure that you quickly identify it and then adapt. This is going to ensure that your approach to studying really actually remains effective and efficient throughout the preparation. So if you adapt some of these habits, it can significantly improve your chances of actually getting to one of those higher MCAT scores. So let's kind of summarize. I know I just talked about a lot. Let's kind of summarize everything that we went through today, and then we can kind of set some clear next steps on how you can get through that. So just to recap, scoring above 515 is not about memorizing every detail. It is about strategic preparation, active learning, consistency, and constantly checking your progress. If you are ready to implement this plan, or if you want more support, subscribe to our channel. We regularly share top tier MCAT strategies, application advice, pre-med resources, and things that we see work really well for our students. You can also click the link in the description to get access to our 4-month study plan. We have it all listed out into a PDF. So if you're interested in that, you can click the link and give us your details on where to send it. And then we have some additional resources that we'll send over as well. All right. Good luck. You've got this. I'll see you next time.